Amidst the endless expanse of the sea, a lighthouse stands alone, casting its guiding light for miles around. But what happens when the light goes out? When the once steadfast beacon of hope becomes a source of fear and uncertainty? In this episode of Midnight Murmurs, we bring you the tale of a lonely lighthouse, a keeper's desperate journey, and the mysteries that lie hidden in the deep, dark waters below. Are you ready to embark on a journey into the unknown? Then sit back, relax, and let Midnight Murmurs guide you through the darkness. Chapter 1: Alone in the Light. It was a quiet and peaceful evening in the lonely lighthouse that stood tall and proud against the backdrop of the vast ocean. The lighthouse keeper, Henry, had spent many years tending to the lighthouse in solitude, relishing in the tranquil lifestyle that came with the job. He enjoyed the calming sound of the waves and the rhythmic rotation of the lighthouse's light, which he had grown accustomed to over the years. As the sun began to set, Henry made his way up the winding staircase to the top of the lighthouse, where he spent most of his time. He gazed out at the stunning view before him and watched as the sky turned shades of pink and orange before giving way to the inky darkness of the night. The only light in sight was the beacon from the lighthouse that illuminated the surrounding waters. As the night grew darker, the atmosphere in the lighthouse began to feel heavier. Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of loneliness creeping in, which was something he had grown accustomed to. He missed having the company of other people, but he had become so accustomed to his solitary life that it was hard to imagine anything else. Despite the loneliness, Henry found solace in his routine. He tended to the lighthouse, cleaned the lenses, refueled the lamp, and made sure that everything was in working order. The lighthouse was his responsibility, and he took great pride in keeping it in tip-top shape. As the night wore on, Henry settled in for a quiet evening of reading, sipping on hot tea, and listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the rocks below. The lighthouse was a place of solace, a haven from the outside world where he could escape from the stresses of everyday life. And although it was a solitary life, it was one that he had grown to appreciate. Alone in the light, Henry reflected on his life and the decisions he had made that led him to this point. He had chosen this life, but he wondered if he had made the right choice. He couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to have someone to share this life with, someone who would appreciate the beauty of the ocean and the tranquility of the lighthouse. As the night wore on and the sound of the waves grew louder, Henry found comfort in the familiar routine of the lighthouse and the company of his books. And although he was alone, he knew that he was never truly alone in the light. The lighthouse was a beacon of hope, a guiding light that provided safety to sailors and brought them safely to shore. In the solitude of the lighthouse, Henry found a sense of purpose and a connection to the world around him. And as he settled in for the night, he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, alone in the light. Chapter 2: The Keeper's Routine. Henry had been the lighthouse keeper for many years, and he had developed a routine that kept the lighthouse in perfect working order. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise to check the lamp and make sure that it was still burning brightly. He climbed up the winding staircase to the top of the lighthouse, where he would take a moment to appreciate the stunning view of the ocean. Once he had finished admiring the view, Henry got to work. He started by cleaning the lenses of the lamp, which was a delicate and time-consuming process. He used a soft cloth and a special solution to clean the lenses, taking care to remove any dirt or debris that could impede the light. It was a meticulous task, but one that Henry took great pride in. After he had finished cleaning the lenses, Henry made his way down to the fuel room to refill the lamp. He carefully poured the oil into the reservoir, taking care not to spill a drop. He knew that it was essential to keep the lamp burning brightly, as it was the only light for miles around and provided a guiding light for sailors at sea. With the lamp refilled, Henry made his way back up to the top of the lighthouse to test it. He checked the light from every angle, making sure that it was shining brightly and casting a clear and visible beam out to sea. Once he had finished his morning routine, Henry had some free time before his next task. He would usually spend this time reading, sipping on a cup of tea, and enjoying the peace and quiet of the lighthouse. In the afternoon, Henry would tend to the grounds around the lighthouse. He would trim the grass, tend to the flowers, and make sure that the paths were clear and easy to navigate. He took great pride in the appearance of the lighthouse and wanted it to look its best for any visitors who might come by. As the sun began to set, Henry would make his way back up to the top of the lighthouse to light the lamp for the night. It was a peaceful and almost meditative task, as he carefully lit the wick and watched as the light flickered to life. He knew that the light would guide sailors safely to shore and bring them to safety. Henry's routine was a solitary one, but it was one that he had grown accustomed to over the years. He found comfort in the familiar tasks and took great pride in keeping the lighthouse in perfect working order. The routine gave him a sense of purpose and connection to the world around him, and he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, tending to the lonely lighthouse. Chapter 3: A Message in a Bottle. It was a quiet night at the lighthouse, and Henry was settling in for his usual routine. He had finished his tasks for the day and was sitting in his favorite armchair, enjoying a cup of tea and reading a book. As he turned the page, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. There was a glint of light coming from the beach below the lighthouse. Curious, Henry made his way down the winding staircase and out onto the beach. He could see a bottle lying in the sand, the light reflecting off the glass. Henry picked up the bottle and was surprised to see a message inside. It was written on a piece of paper, carefully rolled up and tucked inside the bottle. He carefully removed the paper, unrolled it, and began to read. The message was written in a shaky hand, and it was clear that the author was in distress. The writer had been stranded on a nearby island after a shipwreck, and they were running out of supplies. They begged for help, and their desperation was palpable on the page. Henry felt a pang of sadness as he read the message. He knew that he was the only one around for miles, and that it was up to him to help this poor soul. He quickly made his way back up to the lighthouse and started to make a plan. He knew that he couldn't sail out to the island himself, as the waters were too treacherous. Instead, he decided to use his knowledge of the coastline to guide a rescue team to the island. He lit flares and set up markers along the coast, signaling the way to the stranded sailor. It took a few days for the rescue team to arrive, but they finally made it to the island and were able to rescue the stranded sailor. Henry was overjoyed when he heard the news and knew that he had made a difference in someone's life. From that day on, Henry kept a close eye on the waters around the lighthouse. He knew that there were always sailors in need of help, and he was determined to be there for them. He started to leave messages in bottles of his own, hoping that they would find their way to someone in need. The message in the bottle had changed everything for Henry. It had reminded him that there was a world outside of the lighthouse and that he had the power to make a difference in it. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and connection to the world around him, and he knew that he would never forget the message that had sparked this change. Chapter 4: Deciphering the Clues. After the excitement of the rescue mission had died down, Henry found himself thinking about the message in the bottle again. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it, something that he hadn't quite understood. He spent days poring over the message, trying to decipher any clues that might be hidden within the text. He examined the handwriting, the ink, and even the paper itself, hoping to find some hidden meaning. Finally, he noticed something unusual about the way that certain words were written. They seemed to be emphasized in a way that was different from the rest of the text. He circled the words in question and started to rearrange them, trying to form a new sentence. As he worked, a pattern started to emerge. The emphasized words spelled out a set of coordinates, along with a date and time. Henry was intrigued. Could it be that the message was a clue to something else entirely? He went to work immediately, mapping out the coordinates and trying to determine where they might lead. After some research, he realized that they were located on a nearby island, one that was rumored to be the site of a lost treasure. Excited by the possibility, Henry started to plan his next move. He gathered his supplies and set out on his boat, determined to find out what the message was really pointing to. When he arrived at the island, he was amazed at what he found. There was a cave, hidden behind a waterfall, that led to a small chamber filled with treasure. Gold coins, jewels, and other riches were piled high, glittering in the light of his lantern. As he looked around, Henry realized that the message in the bottle had been a clue to this treasure all along. He felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that he had solved the puzzle and discovered something amazing. As he made his way back to the lighthouse, Henry couldn't stop thinking about the journey he had been on. From a simple message in a bottle, he had been led on an adventure that had taken him to a hidden treasure. He knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned along the way. The importance of paying attention to detail, of following clues, and of never giving up on a mystery. He had discovered that there was so much more to life than his routine at the lighthouse, and he was eager to explore it all. With a newfound sense of excitement and adventure, Henry couldn't wait to see what other mysteries were waiting for him out in the world. Chapter 5: A Twist in the Tale. As Henry returned to the lighthouse with his treasure, he felt a sense of accomplishment and excitement. However, he couldn't help but wonder about the mysterious messenger who had led him on this journey. He decided to go back to the message and read it again, hoping to find any other clues that might shed light on the identity of the messenger. As he examined the message closely, he noticed something strange. The handwriting was different from the rest of the text. Curious, Henry took out a magnifying glass and examined the handwriting under closer scrutiny. As he did so, he felt a sudden jolt of recognition. He knew that handwriting. It was his own. Henry was confused and disoriented. How could this be? Had he somehow written the message himself and forgotten about it? He felt a pang of fear and anxiety, worried that he was losing his mind. He tried to retrace his steps, going over every moment since he had discovered the message in the bottle. He tried to remember if he had ever written anything like it, but he came up empty. Desperate for answers, Henry went back to the cave and examined the treasure more closely. As he did so, he found a note tucked into one of the pockets of a leather pouch. The note read, "Dear Henry, congratulations on solving the puzzle. I hope you enjoyed the adventure. Love, your sister." Henry was stunned. He had no idea that he even had a sister, let alone one who would go to such lengths to surprise and delight him. He felt a wave of relief and joy wash over him, knowing that he wasn't losing his mind after all. He wrote back to his sister, thanking her for the amazing adventure and the incredible surprise. They began to correspond regularly, sharing stories and memories from their childhood and catching up on lost time. In the end, Henry realized that the message in the bottle had led him on a journey of discovery, not just of treasure, but of family and connection. He felt grateful for the experience and excited for the future, knowing that there were many more mysteries and surprises waiting for him out in the world. Chapter 6: A New Outlook. After the excitement of his adventure with the message in a bottle and the discovery of his long-lost sister, Henry felt like he was seeing the world with fresh eyes. He no longer felt alone in his lighthouse, but instead felt connected to a larger world full of possibilities and wonder. Henry found himself taking a more active interest in the world around him, enjoying the simple pleasures of daily life. He would watch the sunrise over the ocean and marvel at the colors of the sky. He would tend to his garden, growing herbs and vegetables for his meals. He also found himself reaching out to others, wanting to share his newfound sense of connection and joy. He started writing letters to old friends and acquaintances, catching up on lost time and sharing stories from his life on the lighthouse. He even started a pen pal program with local schools, exchanging letters with students and sharing his love of reading and adventure. As he immersed himself in the world around him, Henry began to notice new things about his surroundings. He marveled at the intricate patterns of the waves and the movements of the birds in the sky. He started to experiment with new recipes and techniques in his cooking, finding pleasure in the simple act of creating something delicious. Even the routine tasks of maintaining the lighthouse took on a new sense of importance and joy. He found himself taking more care in the details, making sure that everything was working properly and looking its best. He took pride in the knowledge that his work was keeping the ships and sailors safe on their journeys. As the months passed, Henry realized that he was no longer just a lonely lighthouse keeper, but a part of a larger community of people and creatures, each with their own unique story and perspective. He felt grateful for the simple joys of daily life and the connections he had forged, knowing that there was always more to discover and explore in the world around him. Chapter 7: A Visitor Arrives. One day, as Henry was going about his daily routine, he heard the sound of a motorboat approaching the shore. He peered out the window of the lighthouse and saw a man disembarking from the boat, carrying a large backpack. Henry was surprised to see a visitor, as he had not had a visitor in many years. He made his way down to the shore to greet the man. "Hello there, I'm Henry. I'm the lighthouse keeper," he said with a smile. The man introduced himself as Jack, a hiker who was traveling along the coast. He had heard about the Lonely Lighthouse and wanted to see it for himself. Henry welcomed Jack to the lighthouse and offered him a tour. Jack was amazed by the beauty of the lighthouse and the surrounding area. He had never seen such a picturesque view of the ocean. Over the next few days, Jack and Henry struck up a friendship. They shared stories and laughed together, enjoying each other's company. Jack was fascinated by Henry's life on the lighthouse, and Henry was equally interested in Jack's travels and experiences. They spent hours talking about everything from their favorite books to their hopes and dreams for the future. As the days passed, Henry felt a renewed sense of appreciation for the world around him. He realized that sometimes all it takes is a new perspective or a new friend to change one's outlook on life. Eventually, Jack had to continue his journey along the coast, but he promised to stay in touch with Henry. As Jack boarded his boat and sailed away, Henry felt a sense of both sadness and joy. He was sad to see his new friend go, but happy to have made a connection with someone new. Henry realized that even in the most isolated of places, there is always the potential for connection and friendship. He looked forward to the next visitor who might arrive at his lighthouse, knowing that they too might bring something new and exciting into his life. Chapter 8: A Stormy Night. Henry sat in his lighthouse, watching as the storm raged outside. The wind howled, and the rain pelted the windows. He was used to the stormy weather, but something about this storm seemed different. As he sat there, the power suddenly went out. Henry was plunged into darkness, and he groped around for a flashlight. He quickly realized that he had forgotten to replace the batteries, and the flashlight was useless. Feeling his way around in the darkness, Henry made his way to the kitchen. He had a small propane stove that he could use to heat up some food, but he knew that he needed to conserve the propane. He searched through his pantry and found some cans of soup and crackers. He lit a candle and sat down at his kitchen table, eating his meager meal in silence. As he sat there, Henry realized how much he relied on modern technology. He had become so accustomed to the ease of electricity and the internet that he had forgotten what it was like to live without them. The storm raged on outside, and Henry tried to distract himself by reading a book. But he found it hard to focus. His mind kept wandering to thoughts of his family, his lost years, and the people he had met during his time on the lighthouse. As the hours passed, the storm finally began to subside. Henry felt a sense of relief and gratitude for having survived the night. He realized that sometimes it takes a stormy night to appreciate the calm and peace that comes after. The next morning, as the sun rose and the storm clouds dissipated, Henry felt a renewed sense of appreciation for the world around him. He saw the beauty of the sunlight reflecting off the water, the birds flying in the sky, and the simple pleasures of daily life. He knew that he would never take the simple things in life for granted again. He also knew that he would always be grateful for the experiences that he had had, both good and bad. As he tended to his lighthouse, Henry felt a sense of calm and contentment, knowing that he had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. Chapter 9: The Final Clue. After the stormy night, Henry was determined to find the final clue that would lead him to the mysterious message sender. He spent the day searching the island, looking for any signs of the person who had left the note in the bottle. He scoured the beaches, the cliffs, and the rocky outcroppings, but found nothing. As the sun began to set, Henry sat on a large rock near the lighthouse, feeling defeated. He had come so far, but it seemed like he had hit a dead end. Just as he was about to give up, he noticed something glinting in the sand. Henry walked over to the object and saw that it was a small medallion with a strange symbol etched into it. He recognized the symbol from one of the clues in the message, and his heart leapt with excitement. He knew that he was one step closer to solving the mystery. He examined the medallion closely and noticed a small inscription on the back. It read, "Follow the stars to the end of the world." Henry realized that this must be the final clue. Without hesitation, Henry rushed back to the lighthouse to get his compass and chart. He plotted his course and set out to follow the stars, just as the medallion had instructed. He sailed his small boat out to the open sea, where the sky was clear and the stars were bright. He followed the North Star, navigating through the open water with ease. As he sailed further and further from the shore, Henry began to feel a sense of excitement and anticipation. He knew that he was getting closer to the end of his journey and the answers that he had been seeking. Finally, after many hours at sea, he saw something on the horizon. It was a small island, barely visible in the distance. Henry felt his heart racing with excitement as he approached the shore. As he stepped onto the sand, he looked around and saw a small hut nestled among the trees. He approached the hut and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a man, tall and lean, with a weather-beaten face and bright blue eyes. The man looked at Henry and smiled. "Welcome, my friend," he said. "I've been expecting you." Henry felt a sense of shock and awe. He had finally found the person who had sent the message in the bottle. He looked at the man and felt a sense of kinship and understanding, as if he had known him all his life. Together, they sat down in the hut and talked for hours, sharing stories of their lives, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. Henry realized that the man had been searching for someone like him, a kindred spirit who shared his love of the sea and the simple life of the lighthouse. As the night wore on, Henry knew that his journey had come to an end. He had found the answers that he had been seeking, and he felt a sense of contentment and fulfillment. He knew that he had found a friend for life, someone who would always be there for him, no matter what. The next morning, as he sailed back to his lighthouse, Henry felt a sense of gratitude for the journey that he had taken. He knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned, the people he had met, and the experiences he had had. As he tended to his lighthouse, he felt a sense of peace and happiness, knowing that he had found what he had been searching for all along. Chapter 10: The Return Home. Henry felt a sense of contentment as he made his way back to his lighthouse, reflecting on his incredible journey and the people he had met along the way. He couldn't wait to share his stories with his fellow lighthouse keepers and the locals in the nearby town. As he approached the shore, he saw the familiar outline of his lighthouse and felt a sense of comfort wash over him. He was eager to return to his routine and the life he had grown to love. As he docked his boat, he saw his fellow lighthouse keepers waiting for him on the shore. They had heard of his incredible journey and were eager to hear his stories. Henry felt a sense of excitement as he stepped onto the shore and hugged his friends. For the next few days, Henry shared his stories with anyone who would listen. He talked about the message in the bottle, the clues, the stormy night, and the incredible people he had met along the way. Everyone was in awe of his journey and the lessons he had learned. Despite the excitement of his return, Henry couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. He knew that his journey had come to an end, and he would miss the sense of adventure and discovery that he had experienced. However, he also knew that he had found a new appreciation for his routine and the simple life of the lighthouse. Over the next few weeks, life returned to normal at the lighthouse. Henry tended to his duties and spent time with his fellow lighthouse keepers, sharing stories and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. As the days passed, Henry began to feel a sense of gratitude for his journey. He realized that it had taught him important lessons about life, love, and the value of human connection. He had found a sense of purpose and meaning that he had been missing for so long. One day, as he tended to the lighthouse, Henry looked out at the sea and saw a small boat in the distance. As it approached the shore, he saw the familiar face of the man he had met on his journey. The man had come to visit him, and Henry felt a sense of joy and gratitude. As they sat in the lighthouse, drinking tea and talking about their lives, Henry realized that his journey had come full circle. He had found a new friend, a new sense of purpose, and a renewed appreciation for the simple life of the lighthouse. As the sun began to set, Henry walked with his friend to the shore, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. He knew that he had come a long way, both physically and emotionally, and he was grateful for the journey that had led him to this moment. As he watched his friend sail off into the sunset, Henry felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future. He knew that he had found the answers he had been seeking, and he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a smile on his face, Henry turned and walked back to his lighthouse, feeling a sense of joy and contentment that he had never felt before. He knew that his life would never be the same, and he was grateful for the incredible journey that had brought him to this moment. Chapter 11, A New Chapter. As Henry sat in his rocking chair, looking out at the sea, he felt a sense of peace and contentment. It had been several months since his incredible journey had come to an end, but the memories and lessons he had learned still lingered in his mind. He thought back to the message in the bottle, the clues, and the people he had met along the way. He remembered the sense of purpose and meaning that he had found, and the renewed appreciation he had for the simple life of the lighthouse. As he sat there, lost in thought, he heard a knock at the door. It was his friend from his journey, and Henry felt a sense of joy and excitement as he welcomed him into the lighthouse. They talked for hours, catching up on each other's lives and reminiscing about their journey together. As the sun began to set, Henry's friend stood up and said his goodbyes, promising to stay in touch and visit again soon. As Henry watched him walk down the path to the shore, he felt a sense of gratitude for the friendship and connection they had formed. He knew that his journey had given him a new appreciation for the value of human connection, and he was eager to form new friendships and relationships in the future. Over the next few weeks, Henry continued to tend to his duties at the lighthouse, but he also made a conscious effort to connect with the people around him. He spent more time in the nearby town, getting to know the locals and sharing his stories. He even started a small book club with a few of the locals, reading and discussing books that he had discovered on his journey. It was a small but meaningful way to connect with others and share his love of literature. As the months passed, Henry found that he was happier than he had ever been before. He had found a sense of purpose and meaning in his life, and he had formed new friendships and connections that brought him joy and fulfillment. One day, as he sat in his rocking chair, looking out at the sea, he thought back to the message in the bottle and the journey it had set him on. He realized that it had been the catalyst for a new chapter in his life, one that was filled with adventure, discovery, and connection. As the sun began to set, Henry smiled to himself, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. He knew that his journey was far from over, and he was eager to see where the next chapter would take him. But for now, he was content to sit in his rocking chair, feeling the gentle breeze on his face and listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. And so, the story of the lonely lighthouse keeper came to an end, but the lessons and memories he had gained on his journey would stay with him forever. He had found a new appreciation for the simple life of the lighthouse, and he had learned that the greatest adventures in life often begin with a single message in a bottle. Chapter 12, The End of the Journey. Henry sat in his rocking chair, feeling a sense of contentment and peace wash over him. It had been several years since he had received the message in a bottle that had set him on his incredible journey, and he had experienced more than he ever thought possible. He had explored new places, met new people, and formed lasting friendships. He had discovered a renewed sense of purpose and meaning in his life, and he was grateful for the lessons and memories that his journey had given him. As he looked out at the sea, he felt a sense of gratitude for the simple life of the lighthouse that he had returned to. He realized that the greatest adventure of all was the one that he was living every day, in the moments of peace and solitude that he found on the rocky shores. He thought back to his journey and the people he had met along the way. He remembered the challenges and obstacles that he had faced, and the way that he had overcome them with strength and determination. As the sun began to set, Henry closed his eyes and breathed in the salty sea air. He felt a sense of calm and tranquility wash over him, and he knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. Over the years, Henry had continued to form new friendships and connections, but he had also learned to value his time alone. He spent his days reading, writing, and tending to the lighthouse, finding joy and fulfillment in the simple tasks of his daily routine. As the years passed, Henry grew older, but his spirit remained young and vibrant. He continued to explore new places and learn new things, always eager to expand his horizons and experience the wonders of the world. But in the end, it was the quiet moments on the rocky shores that brought him the most happiness. The moments when he could sit in his rocking chair, feeling the breeze on his face and listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. As the sun finally set on the horizon, Henry opened his eyes and smiled to himself. He knew that his incredible journey had come to an end, but he was grateful for every moment of it. He stood up from his rocking chair and walked to the door of the lighthouse, looking out at the sea one last time. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, feeling the wind on his face and the salt in the air. And in that moment, Henry knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be, and that his journey, while over, would stay with him forever. The end of the journey was just the beginning of a new chapter, filled with possibility and wonder. And so, the story of the lonely lighthouse keeper came to an end, but the lessons and memories he had gained on his journey would stay with him forever. He had found a new appreciation for the simple life of the lighthouse, and he had learned that the greatest adventures in life often begin with a single message in a bottle. As the beam from the lighthouse continues to cast its bright light into the darkness, we come to the end of our story. We hope you enjoyed this tale of the lonely lighthouse, and that it provided a peaceful respite from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more calming and soothing stories, perfect for relaxation and drifting off to sleep. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we hope to see you again soon in another episode of Midnight Murmurs. Good night.